Ashley, I'm just gonna let you say hello really quickly just so people can see your face and hear your voice.
Hey, I'm Ashley. I am the Director of Alumni Engagement here at Southwestern, and I'm glad y'all could join us today.
Yes, and I'm Katie Rich Johnson. I'm Vice President for Advancement, Marketing, and Communications. So again, we're grateful you're joining us for our coffee chat series. This has been a really fun thing for our office to coordinate, and we've gotten to hear from some really interesting folks today. We're looking forward to hearing from Dr. Mark Whitener, and he's got a student with him, Katura Earl, who maybe will pop her head over just so you can see her. There she is. And for those of you who are joining us a little later, I mentioned this is the Friday before we begin our spring break. And so as I sit here, I'm looking out and watching students come out of Beach Science Center who probably are on their way to a week of rest and relaxation. And so that is good. And we are appreciative of Katura for joining us as she's probably very much looking forward to her own break. But at this time, I'm going to let Dr. Whitener and maybe Katura could introduce herself. I'm not sure how you guys are planning to do this, but do introductions of you two and talk a little bit about launch into your presentation about what's going on in the education division here at SC.
Okay, good deal. Good morning. As Katie said, I'm Mark Whitener. I chair the education division. I'm in my first year as that position. I'm not an SC grad, but my wife has her undergrad in elementary ed and 2 master's degrees from Southwestern. And 2 of my children of the 3 attended Southwestern as well. And we have Katura Earl with us today. She is president of SGA. She's also an education major. So I'll let her say hello.
Hi, y'all. My name is Katura Earl. Like he said, I am a elementary education major, and I am the current SGA president for school year.
All right, so we're going to dive in, and you're welcome to stop me at any point, but I will certainly be happy to answer questions at the end. I felt like this picture sort of encapsulated what we're all about at Southwestern. We're connecting our college students with children throughout our community. This young man happens to be plays football, and he also plays basketball, and you can see that he's working with some preschool children here, and we really work hard to connect all of our students out in the field as early as their freshman year and throughout their career. And Katura will talk a little bit about that this morning. But the other piece is we think learning should be fun, and you can see they're all having fun, and even our college student, our football student, is having a great time with them. Just a little bit about me. I was in K-12 classrooms for 17 years, primarily in Arkansas City. I was a principal at all levels. I was principal of Ark City Middle School and also a high school principal, superintendent in 2 districts, and then I retired in 2019, in the summer of 2019, right before COVID hit. So I felt really fortunate that I got out, not knowing that COVID was coming, but that was a real blessing. I've been on campus full-time since 2019, but I've been an adjunct with Southwestern since 2014, teaching in the doc program. About our program here at Southwestern, we have an elementary education program which covers pre-K through 6th grade, and that's how Kansas licenses teachers now in the elementary. When I went through the program, it was K-9, but today it is pre-K through 6. So when they graduate from our program and get licensed, they can teach 3-year-olds all the way up to 6th grade. Our secondary program is English language arts, biology, chemistry, math, and physical education. And we have a lot of physical education students because we are a sports campus. I think 90% of our students play a sport. So a lot of physical education students. And then our graduate program, which I'm especially proud of, we provide a master's in building leadership, or if you want your principalship, then an endorsement in district leadership. So if you want to be a district lead or a superintendent. And then we also have a doctorate in educational leadership. And we have doc students that are working in the State Department of Education here. We have doc students that are leading, serving as superintendents in some of the largest districts in the state of Kansas, but also all over the world, honestly, in leadership positions. So our doc program has been really successful, and I'm extremely proud of that program. Dr. Jackie Glasgow leads that program. We have a professional development model, and I'm going to ask Keturah to kind of talk a little bit about what that looks like from a student perspective. So I had mentioned in the first slide how we really get kids out into the field, or our students. I call them kids because they feel like kids to me, but they're adults. And so I'm going to ask Keturah to talk a little bit about what that looks like from the student perspective.
So I'm a current junior. When I first got here at Southwestern, it was introduced to the education department. The first 2 years, so freshman and sophomore year, they introduced us by like taking us on school trip visits. So I went to Wichita and visited magnet school. I've been through to a lot of different schools. My sophomore year, I got to actually start observing classrooms, which were in Winfield. See kind of how the classroom works from like a standing behind and not teaching just yet. So I got to see what the teacher does, observe how the students act in class. And so as of this year, I'm in the PDS module. So that I'm now accepted into the teaching program. And so that means is I have 3 classes. I'm currently in my second one where they place me and I'm co-teaching with a teacher. So my first semester I was at Whittier in a 4th grade classroom. And so I was exploring that while also getting to teach and learn like different methods that I like and which methods that would work best for me and develop my own teaching style. I'm currently in Arc City right now, in a 4th grade classroom, which I like because now I'm getting to experience what a different district looks like. And it's eye-opening because they are right next to each other, but they're totally different school districts. And with that, I'm in a new class, meaning that I'm learning students' names again, and I'm getting to know students back from basically base one, day one, sorry. And then next semester, I'll do another classroom, which I don't know what grade that is, but the one thing that is cool about Southwestern is that they place us in different grades so that we can get experience. So I most likely will end up in a younger grade than what I'm normally used to. So it'll be cool to experience that and learn how to teach students that way.
So talk to me, talk to the group a little bit about how do you decide what you're going to teach? How does that work?
So how we decide how we're going to teach is this semester, me and my teacher, we looked at all the different styles and planning. And then I also go based off of my classes. So I'm mainly in a lot of reading classes. So I've been teaching a lot of reading right now. So me and my teacher will sit down on Tuesdays and we'll plan out for what I'm going to teach on Mondays. We go over what I'll need for the lesson, what she can do for me during the lesson, and then also what modes would help students. But that, like, when I get into the classroom on Monday, I have about 5 minutes to prepare since they're coming in from recess. And so I'll prepare over the weekend. So last week I was in the classroom with a sub. And so I was in there completely by myself. So I had to make sure I was prepared for it. So I did the little writing piece beforehand. So they knew what was going on, and so I can explain that to them and they understand the concept. And then after that, I then go back to my teacher and I talk about like what I could do better, what I did that I liked, what models that I like to teach, what I would change, and reflect on that whole experience altogether.
Okay, great. I appreciate that. So our students get about 100 hours in the classroom before they do student teaching. And I think it's really critical that they're out in the field throughout their, especially their sophomore, junior years. We've had students, I've known people in the past that have gone through an education program and they get to student teaching and they say, ooh, this is not for me. I don't want to be a teacher. And we really don't want people going through a program for 3 years and then making that decision. And so getting them out in the field has been really an amazing experience for our students. And what I love about it is we're teaching theory and process in the classroom, and they go out and then they come back and talk about what they're seeing in the classroom. So I think it makes for some really rich discussion during our class periods. In our classes here at Southwestern, these are two of our sophomores and juniors, and they're in a science class. And so what we do is actually very hands-on. They're doing some of the same activities that they would do in the classroom, in the K-12 classroom. And so we're giving them lots of experiences of practicing. And in this particular picture, one of the students is actually teaching the lesson as if these students were elementary students. And so that gives them sort of a safe place to practice. If it's safe to do that in front of your peers, sometimes that's a little hard to do as well. Here's another example. Happens to be in an ELA methods class. These students are secondary ELA majors. And so one of the students has prepared a lesson, and you can see students are working cooperatively together. And so this lesson would be something that a student could put in their portfolio and take with them after graduation, and it's ready to roll out. So they have a portfolio of lessons ready and they don't have to start from scratch. Again, just another example. This happens to be my classroom, and students in this particular class prepared 5 learning stations that they're able to pack up and take with them at the end of the semester, and then they can actually have these ready to roll on their first day as an elementary teacher. So they're actually, this happens to be, might even be Katura's station that she created, but they're actually doing what the students would do in the elementary. So very hands-on, and we try to make sure they have, as I said, a portfolio of work that can be implemented right away when they leave us. Another piece, we work very closely with the Early Learning Center, which is our preschool that is kind of across town. And we have about 50 preschool students in our SC Learning Early Center. And many of our education students do practicum hours at the Early Learning Center. So it's a great way for them to get that hands-on experience, not only just in the K-12 system, but also in the Early Learning Center as well. Just some fun facts about us. We have had 22 student teachers out in the field for the 23-24 year. We have 50 students that are out doing either observations or co-teaching currently. And then another piece is almost all of our student teachers already have been offered a contract for next school year. So we're very proud of that. Some of them haven't really pursued it yet because some of them live in other states. And so they're kind of waiting till they go home to look for jobs. But pretty much all of our student teachers are offered contracts before the end of the school year. So that's kind of our presentation. I just wanted to allow some time for questions. If any of you have questions of us, either of Katura or me, we're happy to answer your questions.
Well, I do have a question. In this day and age, with education seems to be taking a back seat nationally, poor teacher salaries, violence in the school, how are you able to recruit these students to come in. I was a music education professor at Loyola University, and I have 50 teachers out there, but they're in the orchestra. They conduct orchestra, but what I have found in the last few years is that people are straying away from going into the schools.
Yeah, that's true. My wife told me that when she went through the program here at SC, that there were about 200 in the program. And I think we have probably about 125 in the program right now. But that is really across the board, whether it's private colleges or our public universities. Education is down across the board. But we're starting to see that tick up a little bit. And you asked kind of how we recruit. One of the things we're doing is really trying to go into a 3-county area around us within 50 miles. And we're going into the schools, and most of our schools have like a intro to ed. Most of our high schools around us have intro to ed programs. And so we go in and present. We've taken our college students into those programs and presented. And we also bring them onto campus and give them a day of campus life and do some fun activities with them. But we don't wait until high school. Dr. Dawn Plez, one of our vice presidents, starts with middle schoolers, 7th graders, and gets them on campus. They come on campus throughout the year, and we do some fun activities with them. And then we do a summer camp where they come and actually live on campus for 3 days in June, and we do all kinds of great activities. So we're making those connections with kids that might have an interest in education and recruiting. So we start as early as 12 years old.
Well, I have another question. I believe the average salary of an educator now might be $40,000 to $45,000 a year. I can remember when I took a graduate course in issues in education, one of them was social economic level, and a public school teacher was classified as upper lower class as far as financial.
Yes.
How do you break that? I mean, how do we get this? How do we get the politicians to realize that you're going to have to give teachers a living wage? For us,
Right.
In my situation, my wife taught the whole time. That's the way it is. I mean, I taught 14 years in the public schools, and then I jumped to the university level. But if she wouldn't have been working, we couldn't have made it in education.
Right. Right. So speaking of salaries, our Kansas City, so most of you, I'm sure you're all SC alum, you know our Kansas City is just south of us, about 10 miles. They're actually the highest, they have the highest salary in the state of Kansas right now, and starting for a brand new teacher is $52,000 in our Kansas City. Winfield is at about 48. But right now 52 is the highest. If you want to go into some more urban areas, such as the Fort Worth public school system, they're starting teachers at 65 to 70,000 a year. So you can be a little more selective. I tell our students, you need to look at the salary schedules, you need to do your research, and you need to be selective about where you go, because there is such a shortage. It is beginning to drive those salaries up. We do, as part of our small Kansas College Association, we do have a legislative committee that does go into the State House and advocates for higher salaries. So we have seen an increase in funding under our current governor. So we just keep pushing it. And I think our legislators are seeing right now that because our salaries are so low and we have such a crisis they're starting to look at it a little differently.
Dr. Whitener, you might talk a little bit about the Educate the State program.
Sure. So we have a couple of programs. One of them, Educate the State, is really geared towards secondary students that want to go into secondary education. And they maybe have completed 2 years at a junior college. And there is funding, state funding, that will provide scholarships for them to finish their degree. And we have MOUs with a couple of different junior colleges or community colleges so that they can transfer straight into SC. And then the state will provide tuition assistance that will cover most of their tuition for the next 2 years. They do have to teach in Kansas schools for a number of years. And then the other piece that we have that's geared towards elementary teachers is the apprentice program. And it's geared towards paraeducators, teachers' aides, and student teachers that are currently working in education. And they can get an online degree while they're working, and the state will cover most of their tuition. If they're Pell eligible, they pretty much can go for free. So we're working really heavily with those programs. Excuse me. I'm going into districts within a 3-county radius and working with district office personnel to see if they will identify some really great paraeducators or teachers' aides or substitutes, and then we're going to try to get them enrolled in our online program. But they do have to get a 4-year degree just like everyone else. But the state and federal grants will cover most of their tuition.
Yeah, these are great programs that once we, I think, button up the Educate the State program a bit more, we have intentions to really go into community colleges and really make sure that students understand that benefit and what that guarantee could mean for them. So, Florence, I know you had a question, and then I see that Jim, you've got your hand raised. So we'll let Florence, you go ahead.
Well, I just wanted to say that I was curious about the placement of our student teachers at Southwestern. Are you mostly placing them in the Winfield, Art City, and then Wichita schools, or how far out do you go? And what kind of, like, I'm originally from Liberal. We have community college there, and I'm wondering if we have any connections with the community college 4 hours away that helps them place teachers in their systems.
So primarily, our students are placed in Winfield. We do place some in Arc City. Most of our students want to stay fairly close. We also are placing some students in Oxford. We do have 2 student teachers in the Wichita Public Schools at this time. And then we also have some students that are in Germany right now doing their student teaching on some bases, their military bases. So, but you're right, primarily it's in the Cali County area, and they want to stay fairly close, and a lot of them stay on campus, continue to live on campus, so they want to do their placement. We do have students that choose to go home. I know we have a couple of students that are doing their student teaching in Oklahoma right now. And so we do work with systems all over the country. I have a student that's from Hawaii, so if he wants to go home and do his student teaching in Hawaii, we'll connect with that system and get a placement for him. We work with the Department of Defense. We have an MOU with the Department of Defense so that our students, if their spouses are in the military, that they can be placed all over the world wherever they need to be, and we work with them and we provide support for them. We go into the schools locally. Part of the reason why we like to place them here in Winfield and Arc City is because we, as professors, go in and observe them teaching and provide support. But then for our students who are placed all over the United States or all over the world, we do that digitally. So we have a professor that just works with those students, and they do work sort of like what we're doing this morning over a video call to support them. We have talked about working out in West Kansas. We're looking at that. We haven't made any formal agreements yet, but we are looking at connecting. I do have a friend that's a superintendent in Dodge City that I've contacted, and he's willing to work with us. So we're starting to look at Western Kansas.
Okay, we live in Derby now. Do you have any student teachers in Derby?
We have had, we don't currently. We actually have a meeting with the Derby district office, not next week, but the week after spring break. And I'm going to present our apprentice program to them and also our Educate the State program to their district office. So I'm excited about that. And we have, excuse me, an MOU, a memorandum of understanding with the Derby School District already. So we're trying to get into as many school districts within a 3-county area as we can.
Okay, thank you.
All right, Jim, you're up.
Yeah, one of the things I probably should have mentioned when, I hope you can hear me, I'm driving. So
Yes.
I was on a board of education. I live up in the Kansas City metro area, and I was on the board of education for our local school district for about 10 years. So one of the things I would encourage you to have your students do is attend some board of education meetings, both in Arc City and Winfield and Oxford, wherever. So they kind of understand the other side of education, which in my experience, both my daughters got teaching certificates. They have little understanding of school finance. And you were talking about school salaries. Yeah, that is a constant struggle, but it's all predicated on how the board allocates its funds and the budget process that comes from the state. And I think it would be important for the students to get a more total picture of education. And board meetings can be fascinating events if you've never attended one. So that's, oh, and also, by the way, I don't know why I did this. I got a teaching license, and I've been substituting this last year, which is fascinating to be at the university level, then on a board of education, and now you're teaching kindergartners.
Yes.
Quite a transition.
Yes, definitely. Well, thanks for that suggestion, Jim. And we actually, one of our assignments requires our students to go to a Board of Education meeting, and then they have to write a reflection on that. We probably could expand that and do a little more, and probably I should go take a group and go with them, and then we could have probably a robust conversation. Of course, I was a superintendent, so I'm pretty versed in school boards and school board meetings, and they can be quite interesting and sometimes entertaining. So yeah, I think that's a great suggestion.
Well,
yeah,
Martha,
and I think one other thing on that is that you might educate them that there's no requirement for anybody to be a Board of Education member, or there's no expertise required. It's just who happens to run.
Yes.
And it's struggle getting teachers. It's also a struggle oftentimes to get people to participate on boards.
True. Very true.
Good observation, Jim.
I would make a comment that boards of education right now have become so politicized, and it is important that teachers understand what kind of thing there is. I served on the Board of Education as a member and later president of the Winfield Board of Education, and Jim is absolutely right. Until I went on the board, I really had no understanding of how the financing was done. And it's really important, I think, that teachers get that so that they can even be sharper when they go into negotiation a little bit later, because it's very important.
Sure. Absolutely. Good suggestions.
well, I have a question for the superintendent.
Okay.
To me, the superintendent is the person that determines the quality of the education. I had very successful music programs, but the superintendent in Hayes, Kansas, the one in Spartanburg, South Carolina, they wanted that. They wanted that program to go along because they knew that that goes hand in hand with education. That's number one. Number two, how do you explain to these students, this is for our education professor, how do you explain to the students, yes, that opening salary at $50,000 a year, it comes to a screeching halt then. My daughter has been teaching for 25 years. She's making $60,000 a year. There's no real incentive, and she's darn good, but don't get me wrong. It's just, I find myself helping my kids a lot, especially my daughter who's in the education field with 2 children and a cat
Sure.
and a husband. And
Sure.
I
Yeah.
mean, talk to me about that. How do you deal with that with the school boards? I mean, you can't start somebody at $50,000 a year, and 10 years later, they're still making maybe $60,000 a year.
So
I'm not quite as crazy. I'm not quite as crazy as that sounds. It's an
okay, I don't know if we're getting feedback there.
I got,
or-
I got it.
Okay, okay, all right. So it's interesting. So when I was in my first school district and I was superintendent of Oxford Public Schools, and it was during the mid 2000s when we were going through the Great Recession, and our governor at the time decided that he was going to make up deficits by cutting schools. And we went through some pretty massive cuts. Um, so one of the things we tried to do was offer some incentives for students that got their masters. At the time, we were giving a $6,000 raise for our students that went and got their master's degree. And a master's degree, I think at SC right now, probably cost about $10,000. So they would make that up over the course of a couple of years. So we did that. We worked on some retirement benefits that would provide insurance for our teachers after retirement through when they were Medicare eligible, until they were Medicare eligible. So we try to do some things like that. Certainly, I was often advocating for teachers, but you can only do what the state will allow you to do. So I feel like superintendent's hands are tied. Certainly, I went to Topeka during legislative sessions and attended committee meetings and advocated for teachers and funding and salary. So you do what you can do. I would say, going back to Arc City, so we actually interviewed a candidate, potential professor. And this is a teacher that's 40 years old in Arc City, so she has about 20 years in the system, and she's making $70,000 a year. And Arc City provides a $2,500 retention bonus each year that I think they give out at Christmas time, and that's something that we did in Oxford. Is we did a bonus at Christmas time. So you do what you can do, but you're really limited by the funds that the state provides.
Still, education. Our students are our most important resource.
Yes.
And it's still taking a back seat.
Yes.
Nationally.
Yes.
It's true.
I have 50 teachers out there that are teaching, but they've gone to play, but I was able to place them all over the country. The ones that are in Atlanta, Las Vegas, some of these places. I mean, Las Vegas is an incredible place as far as salaries are concerned and the benefits that they get. but there's so many places, and I believe I can remember starting in Hayes, Kansas for $6,700 for 11 and a half month contract. That was
Yes.
fine and dandy.
Yep.
In 1973, my wife was pregnant with our second child, and they wouldn't, the amount of money that we were making at that time was not enough to support with one salary. And that's when I made the move to South Carolina, where the superintendent actually went to bat for the educators, and I had a living wage.
Mhm.
Yeah, superintendents, you're right. Leadership is the key, and working with school boards and convincing school boards that we need to take care of our teachers is one of their main jobs. I agree with you. But as we've said, anybody can run for school board, and sometimes you have people that run that think teachers are overpaid. I had a principal, my second principal stood in front of us at a staff meeting and said we were all overpaid when we were probably making in the upper 20,000s at the time. So, people have different points of view, and it is very politicized, and we have groups of people that honestly want to kill public schools right now and put money into vouchers and money into private schools. And so it's a difficult time politically. And I'm teaching a doc class to aspiring superintendents right now, and we talk a lot about the political climate and how to navigate through that political climate. And if you don't if you don't manage that climate, you're going to get fired. You just are, especially in rural Kansas districts that are incredibly conservative.
Yeah, I grew up in one of those little bitty towns in Southwest Kansas, and almost everybody thought teachers were overpaid, and they would always reference that they don't work that many days.
Right.
And even I was on a board in a large school district, and you still had people who think that it's not their salary. It's if you annualize it, it's a lot different, and they still look at it like that.
Yes.
So and I think people understood, like, the Board of Educations normally don't have a whole lot to say about how much a teacher gets paid. You have a budget that you get from the state, and you have to spread it out the best you can.
Yes.
And if you have a declining enrollment in the state of Kansas, you're just hosed because you're getting less money every year, and your costs are still going up.
Yes, that's
So
correct.
I think, yeah, the students understanding how that works, they probably could have a profound impact on some things.
Yeah, so typically salaries are 80% of your budget. And I remember when I was superintendent in Oxford, our elementary school was 90 years old and it needed a new roof. And the roof was so bad that we had to close some rooms because the plaster was falling off the ceilings. We had little plastic kiddie pools all around to catch the water, and I didn't have the money to put a roof on it. So it's been a tough road. Things are a little better right now. We have a governor that is incredibly supportive of education. We've had multiple lawsuits in the state of Kansas that were resolved within the last 4 or 5 years. We have a constitution that is pretty education friendly, and our Supreme Court has upheld some of the provisions, but it's taken a lot of work from a lot of people that have put their necks on the line to ensure that funding has been maintained in the state. But it was rough, especially during the Great Recession.
Dr. Whitener, I just was wondering if you might talk briefly about some of the faculty. You might highlight a few members of your faculty. I know you've got some folks who've been around for an awfully long time, have quite a tenure. Also, I think it's worth pointing out that Dr. J.K. Campbell, also a former superintendent, former division chair of the education division, has moved up and is the associate vice president for academic affairs at the college and the dean of faculty now. So to have someone, with that sort of prowess and focus on education, I think is a great thing for your division, I would imagine, but I just would be interested to hear you talk a bit about that.
Yeah, it's really great to have Dr. Campbell as dean because he does understand K-12 education inside and out. He was superintendent of schools here in Winfield. I actually worked for Dr. Campbell. He was principal of my elementary school in Arkansas City in the early 2000s. And then he moved into the district office there in Ark City and then was superintendent of schools here in Winfield. So he too knows really education and especially the political side of that inside and out. But also, I think he and I both, as former administrators, our focus was instruction. And really instruction is my heart and soul. That's what I love. But we also have Dr. Jackie Glasgow, who was a former special education teacher and was on the school board in the Wellington School District, where I was superintendent for many years, and she leads our DOC program. But she is an amazing educator and has been in the field for many years. Then we have Dr. Christine Rogers. She was a kindergarten teacher and then also a special education teacher. And she is a reading specialist. And that's really important to us because the state of Kansas and our legislature has really pushed hard for us to teach reading from a scientific perspective. And Dr. Rogers is really trained in that, and she's a great staff to have. Then we have Marla Coral, who's been in several of the systems across the state. Was trained as an elementary teacher and then also as a librarian. She's actually our faculty assistant, but she teaches classes for us. And then we have Kim Hutto, who has just retired from the Winfield Public Schools. She's a reading specialist. She's an instructional specialist, served as an instructional coach. She teaches some classes for us. Then we have Denise Sweet, who is retired from the Ark City Public School System. She was an art teacher, but she also has her master's in curriculum and instruction. And so she's covering some of the classes. So we have a lot of people with a lot of experience in education. We have one position that's posted, so we'll be hiring an additional teacher for the upcoming 24-25 year.
Thank you. All right. Well, so we are coming up on our time limit here together today, but are there any last questions for Dr. Whitener?
Yes, Dr. Whitener. I still
Yes, sir.
go back to the question, how are we going to fix this politically? Still, education is taking a back seat. It sounds like Southwestern and a lot of schools are doing a great job of teacher training. But the thing is, then they're thrown to the wolves.
Yeah, I actually was talking to Dr. Campbell this morning about our political situation and wondering where that's all going to end up at some point. And I don't know how to fix it. I'm just going to be honest with you. I wish I had the answer to that question. I have met with our legislators, our local legislators. I've met with our legislators from DC anytime I've had the opportunity, and we always advocate and say a lot of prayers. And I don't have the answer to your question. I believe, and I always want to have hope. I believe our political system is going to hit rock bottom, and then we're going to turn around. I don't think we can continue to go down the road we're going politically. I think people are going to get a gutful of it, and I think people are going to see that the road we're headed down is not the right road. At least that's my hope. And I'm hoping in the next election cycle, we're going to start seeing a turnaround, but it's frightening. It's very frightening.
Well, I think hopefulness is a good way to end this. And what's more hopeful than educating great teachers who will be out in the world working with young people? And so we're really proud of our education division and the students who graduate from Southwestern. And I know we've got, as you mentioned, Dr. Whitener, a bunch of them who are going to be teaching here in our local schools. And that's been something that we've been celebrating as faculty and staff on campus as we've been hearing about their placements and knowing that they're going to be near us still and in our community and teaching our kids. And that's something to celebrate. And so we just have to keep being advocates for education in all the spaces that we can be. And so I want to thank everybody who joined us today. Please remember that these calls are archived and you can find them on our website. So if there's anybody you'd like to share this discussion with, you can go grab the link and send it out. We're working on getting our April coffee chat scheduled, but Ashley will send information out about that once we get that settled. And we sure hope you guys will join us in April for that. Other things to look forward to for alumni. Founders Weekend is coming up in April. That is April 19th and 20th. So we'll be celebrating Halls of Fame on campus, and so that'll be exciting. But before we get there, on March 21st, we have our Step Up for Southwestern Day, which is a great opportunity to support the Builder Fund at Southwestern. We have a bunch of matching gifts that will double and in some cases triple contributions to the Builder Fund that day. So certainly hope you all will share information about that with those you know who support Southwestern. So with that, I want to again thank Dr. Whitener and everyone in the Education Division. Katura, have a wonderful spring break. I hope you get some rest and you have fun and enjoy time with your family. So all right, builders, I guess we're off into the weekend. Again, many, many thanks and take care.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Bye.
Happy spring break.